From every strand on the line of your reel, to the rods, to the anglers, to the lures on the end of your hook, let's talk about those big bass here on Co-Angler's Corner with your hosts, Rob Welch and John Stout.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Co-Angler's Corner. I'm John Stoutinger with JCX Fishing.
Hi, y'all are. Cajun Rob here, coming out of Kentucky. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It goes by too quick for sure.
Oh, it does. I couldn't believe it. I had so many plans for this weekend, and next thing you know, I had to go to work.
Yep. Same here.
Yep. So just so you know, we have a very special guest on tonight. Last time we attempted to have her on, something happened, and I had to make we had to punt. This angler is a United States Coast Guard licensed captain. She hosts the Woman Angler podcast, and she does a lot with people who don't normally fish. And so I'd like to bring her on, Miss Angie Scott.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on this evening. Glad we were able to work it out and get it rescheduled. Thanks for being flexible. My parents were I was down in Florida and they were visiting. They had just flown in, and I actually thought they were coming in the following day. So we were right in the middle of getting them settled in, their rental for the week and whatnot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think this is going to work. So
it happens. It happens.
Flexible.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah. Glad to be here this evening.
Wanting to come on and do the show. So if you don't mind, you telling a little bit about your background as far as angling and life and whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up in Minnesota, grew up fishing walleye and panfish, pike, that sort of thing. My dad had a little alumna craft, little small fishing boat, but he had a 40-horse Johnson, still has the same boat to this day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. He's done, a few upgrades to it, put new flooring in and new carpet and new trolling motor, updated that. I think it still has the same outboard on it, though, I'm pretty sure. So pretty impressive.
Wow.
He's always been handy with that kind of stuff. So, but we would go up north, northern Minnesota, Lake Mille Lacs, further up north to Lake Vermilion. That was one of my favorite places to go. And I just always really enjoyed trying to catch walleye, just because that was kind of the most sought after fish as far as like eating goes. And so kind of, I had an older brother and we would always have competition. Sometimes even if it would just be my dad and I competing, like who's going to catch the first walleye, who's going to catch the biggest one. So fishing and competition always kind of went hand in hand for me. As I got older, I actually, believe it or not, I kind of stopped eating fish. I think because we had so much of it growing up. And I guess I got burnt out on it maybe. But to this day, I still don't eat a whole lot of fish. Every now and then I'll eat if we get a good fresh walleye catch or something like that. It's still one of my favorite fish to eat. Crappie as well are pretty good, but anything like real fishy and whatnot, I don't really care for. But anyways, ended up in Tennessee, and the reason I ended up there, when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do for a living, I was kind of going back and forth. I either wanted to do something outdoors related, like go into natural resources or something like that, or I was really into music and I wanted to like somehow work at a record label or something like that. So I actually started going to the University of Minnesota just for business, and found out that there were actually schools in Tennessee that had music business programs. And I was like, well, that's what I need to go do if I want to work in the music business, because it's hard enough to get your foot in the door. Going to one of these schools that specializes in it would make it a little easier. So I ended up transferring down to Nashville, Tennessee, didn't really, well, actually Murfreesboro, which is about 30
Mhm.
minutes south, there's a state
Yep.
school there called Middle Tennessee State.
Yep.
They have a really good music business program, and just really enjoyed my studies. Like I said, I just always had a natural interest in it. Loved music, but also always had a weird interest in the business side. Like I would idolize like the record label executives almost more so than the musicians. So
Sure.
um, anyway, went to school there, did some internships, was in the right place at the right time, and landed a job at a big booking agency that booked concerts, all genres, which was cool because I
Cool.
love all genres. So unlike working at a label or maybe a management company where you're just kind of stuck with those few artists, with this booking agency, it was like the whole like rainbow. And
Oh,
so that
cool.
was really cool. So I ran the contracts department after I'd been there for a few years, which was every time you book a show, you had to send a contract out to the promoter. They usually pay a deposit. So I was just kind of in charge of like making sure they returned the contracts, got the deposits in. But at night, we got to go out and go to concerts, and sometimes even travel, or we ended up backstage a lot, and it was just fun getting to meet a lot of cool people. But over the years, I did that for 16 years. Over the years, I really, really started missing being outdoors.
Yep.
And, it was a desk job. So, I pretty much had to get there about 9:30, was there till 6:30 every day. At the time, I had a windowless office. So it
Oh,
was, yeah, it was starting, somebody who loves the outdoors so much, it was starting to wear on me. So in 2015, I bought my first pontoon at the Nashville Boat Show, which was actually, I don't know if you guys have heard of the brand Quest pontoons. They're
yeah.
made up in Michigan. They make a lot of pontoons that are really geared toward fishing, which I found very attractive because I was like, instead of just being stuck with a traditional fishing boat, at the time working in the music business, I would write some songs on the side too. That was just kind of a hobby, but I envisioned, going out on the lake, inviting some songwriters out, bring their guitars, we'll write a song, maybe do a little fishing, had, the live well, the rod holders, like everything you needed for fishing, a trolling motor, all that stuff. And that was great. I really enjoyed it. So it kind of got me back out on the water. And there's great lakes right around the Nashville area that I just wasn't taking advantage of for all those years. I was like, there's Percy Priest Lake, and then there's Old Hickory Lake are probably the two closest ones to downtown Nashville. And so I kept my boat on Percy Priest Lake, and Percy Priest does not have walleye, although the world record walleye was caught out of Old Hickory Lake. So I was kind of torn a little bit on what lake to go to, but I just like Percy Priest better. So went out there, did a lot of fishing. I remember catching my very first fish off the Quest pontoon. I went out one day on my own, and it was a drum, but
Oh,
it was fun. I was excited to boat my first fish on the Quest. And so it was just everything I envisioned. I got more into it, and I was like, maybe I'm at the point in my career I should think about how could I transition over to more of an outdoors type role, because I didn't want to wake up at 65 and have just sat behind a desk all my life.
yeah.
And plus it was, the music business can be a little stressful. So
Oh, yeah.
there's personalities and things, not just the artists, but the other people in the music business, and egos and all that sort of thing. And I was like, so I started working on getting my captain's license, and I envisioned being able to take charters out and with the pontoon, and not necessarily fishing charters, but more recreational charters. I didn't think of myself as good of a fisherman to be able to take people out and put them on fish, but I thought it would be fun just to like show people the lake, and
Yeah.
go take them to Party Cove and throw anchor and let them have a good time. And so got my captain's license, and right all around that time, I started the podcast. I kind of dabbled in podcasting when I was in the music business. A friend of mine approached me and asked if I would co-host a songwriting podcast. That was my first experience with it. He did all the editing, all the behind the scenes stuff. But that introduced me to it, and had a good feel of like what it was all about, what it would take to run a podcast. And ultimately, I was thinking, of ways I could just eventually transition out of the music business and into something more outdoors related that also tied in my passion for boating and fishing and being on the water. So I initially started the podcast as a show called It Pays to Fish. And the idea was I would interview people who make a living in the fishing industry, regardless of what facet it may be. I wanted to think outside the box, outside of tournament angler, guide, your traditional roles of what you think of as somebody who makes a living in fishing. And part of it was a little bit selfish because I was trying to get ideas for myself, like,
Right.
that sounds like fun. So I interviewed people like Angie Scott, who's a marine artist, does a lot of work for Hook Gear. Um, uh, Troy Lindner, at the time, I think he had a TV show, I don't know. He did something kind of outside of the box as far as like trying to tie in exercise and fishing, and I thought that was interesting.
Sure.
Just all sorts of whatever I could find, like the guy who started the app Fish Donkey.
Yep.
So anyway, that was a lot of fun. And then there's another podcast I listened to called Salt Strong, which is more kind of based down in Florida. They were kind of doing the same thing. Not that there isn't room for multiple people doing the same thing, but when I had this lady on my show who runs a group of women anglers up in Wisconsin, I started thinking, gosh, there's not a show out there right now that provides an outlet for women to share their stories in fishing in the outdoors. And so I thought about, what if I transition this over to something that focuses on that? Because I got a lot of really good response from that episode, and just seeing that at the time there wasn't anything else out there. So that's when I made the transition to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. So that was back in, I guess, the beginning of 2018. So it's been going pretty strong ever since then. Up until this past fall, I've been doing episodes every single Tuesday. Finally decided to give myself a little bit of a break and turn it into more of a seasonal. So I gave myself a break from November till the beginning of March, which is now, we can talk more about this, but now I've kind of transitioned into a career in the boating world, ties in fishing a little bit. But I can work seasonally or remotely down in Florida, which why not, fishing capital of the world. And so those are kind of the months we're down there. So it kind of gives me a break, gives me some time to collect some content over those months. So that way, when March hits, I've got kind of a backlog of stuff to pull from, but then I can also continue to, get more interviews and have some current content as well. So, so far it's been working out really, really well. And it was nice, to have that little bit of a reprieve. So it's a lot of work putting out a podcast episode every single week.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we know all about that.
Yeah, Rick Amato, he's a good guy, fan of the show. He says good evening. He's down in Florida. Andy Slager says, "What's up, Rob?"
Hey, Andy. That's my good buddy from Knoxville.
Love East Tennessee.
Oh yeah, I lived there for 20 plus years. I miss it some days, but Knoxville's got like 4 different lakes all the way around. They all got a different personality, so it's. I still fish down there.
Now we can talk a little bit about that, but since I started the podcast and got out of the music business, I was doing a live podcast at the Nashville Boat Show in January 2020. Invited a bunch of women anglers in the area to come out. We all got in front of the hog trough. We had a little audience, videoed it and everything. And we interviewed all the ladies that came out. A lot of them were tournament anglers. and some of them fished the LBAA, like Terry Sindrick was there.
Yep.
Deanna Laverne, who hasn't fished it here, I think, in a couple seasons, but she might have done one this year so far, I think I saw. But anyway, at that event is where one of the ladies that works for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency said, "Hey, you have your captain's license. You should go talk to Freedom Boat Club. They got a booth here. They're looking for people to do their new member orientation trainings." And I was like, well, I could do that, so I went and talked to them. They just got new owners in Nashville, so I got to meet with them, told them about my podcast, about my fishing and all of that. And they wanted to support that, but also bring me on as the training captain. And it's been an awesome fit ever since.
Awesome.
Outstanding.
But what made me think of that, we have 5 or 6 locations in Middle Tennessee and 5 in East Tennessee. So I've been able to travel over to Knoxville here quite a bit with that, and it's been fun learning more about the Knoxville area and all, Tennessee River and all the different fisheries over there.
Yeah, it's neat over there. They got a lot of good scenic areas for sure.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yep.
Yeah.
Andy says he talked to Johnny Miller in Knoxville with Freedom Boat Club.
Johnny Knoxville. Why am I not surprised his name came up on this show? I'll have to text him.
So, when you're fishing, you used to fish competitively, and we talked briefly before the show about it and possible in the future. What is your go-to technique or your favorite technique that you would try to use?
My go-to is, and anybody who knows me knows this, is the Senko. It's just always, it's in Florida. You can't go wrong with a Senko. I've caught my personal best on a Senko. That was in Texas in the spring. I've used to only fish it and only had success with it Texas rigged, weighted or weightless. And just in the past couple years, I'm like, I'm gonna, everyone on the LBA, not everyone, but a lot of especially the co-anglers have a lot of success with the wacky rig Senko. And I was like, I'm gonna figure that out. And as soon as I started doing that again, it was, I love it. So now I'm almost like always wacky rigging the Senko, but either way, it seems like that's, if nothing else is working, that's usually going to get them. They can't resist it.
Yeah, that's true. I know a lot of my local guys, they tell me that if they see me with a Senko in my hand at noon, it means I'm having a lot of trouble catching fish other ways.
Yep. But I like a lot of different techniques. I kind of like learn one and then I get stuck on it for a while, and you start having success. Like I've gone through phases, like the Fritz side, I've gone through phases. I'm like, I can't put it down. And then just this past year, I hired a guide out here on Percy Priest Lake that I've known for years. Hired him way early on before I even had my pontoon, just to go bass fishing. And one day I was like, I suck at a jerk bait. I really want to get good at it. And I said, let's go out, and I don't want to throw anything but a jerk bait the whole time we're out there. And that's what we did. And ever since then, now I'm like, I got this down. I love it. So I throw a jerk bait a lot. So yeah, it really depends. But if I had to pick one, it always comes back to the Senko for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Andrew Pulliam says John Cox has made a few bucks with a wacky rig.
Oh yeah.
I think most anglers, especially up on that level, have made quite a few bucks with a wacky rig.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was fishing a BFL Saturday at South Holston, and we had like 5 minutes left. We was right around the corner from the check-in boat, and I broke off. I was throwing Ned rig, broke it off, and I said, "Well, I got a wacky rig, bubblegum Cinco. That's my favorite." So I pitched it in there. Smallmouth grabs it, set the hook, and it like cartwheels out of the water. I'm like, "Oh!" Get it to the boat. It's like 14 3/4. It had to be 15. It was South Holston above Bristol, but yeah, it was still fun though. But if he was just a little longer, I flipped him over, and oh well, it was fun.
Frustrating when that happens, but
yeah.
Smallmouth are fun for sure.
Oh yeah, they're strong.
Oh yeah, yeah. This picture behind me, I don't know, it's a little blurry, but that's actually a trip we took up to Lake Erie. And that particular day we were walleye fishing, but the captain took us out smallmouth fishing as well. And that was actually filmed for a couple segments of the show called Midwest Outdoors.
Yeah.
You could probably find it on YouTube, but that was fun because, I mean, I've caught smallmouth before, bass fishing, but when you're on Lake Erie and you're just targeting smallmouth and they bite the hook, they come shooting up out of the water, and then they're straight down, and then the fight's on. It's a blast.
Johnny Miller says, Angie Sliger, Angie and I worked together at Freedom. Good looking out.
Johnny's watching. All right.
All right.
So you said you're from Minnesota and a big walleye fisherman. And being down in Tennessee, there's not a lot. There is some walleye, but not as much as in Minnesota. How do you cure that itch? Because that's something, it seems like when somebody's a walleye fisherman, they just have to do it.
Yeah, so one of my goals early on was like, I'm going to catch a walleye in Tennessee. And, not really knowing anything about how you fish for walleye down here. I did that guide I mentioned, Brian Carper, who's out here in Percy Priest. I reached out to him. I was like, do you know any walleye guides in Tennessee? And he said, yeah, actually a good friend of mine down on Lake Normandy, which is south, about an hour and a half south maybe of where I'm at on Percy Priest. Not far from Tim's Ford Lake, which Tim's Ford has walleye as well. But Pete Hatchett is a guide out on Lake Normandy, and so he put me in contact with him, and I went out with Pete and took one of my buddies down there with me, and we, my buddy caught the first walleye, so I was like, dang it, but I did finally get my first walleye that morning with Pete, cool. And so I was like, yeah, my first Tennessee walleye. So that was before I bought the pontoon, or maybe right after I bought the pontoon. So I wasn't quite ready to like trailer it down there and try it on my own. But the next year I did, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna catch my first walleye on my own, And I kind of remembered where Pete had taken us. And what we were, we were dragging crawler harnesses. And so we did kind of the same thing. Got out there about 6 a.m., just like trolling around in the circle in the, I don't know what depth, like maybe 13, 14 feet, something like that. This was early June. And these guys were kind of doing the same thing. There's like maybe 2 other boats out there. And about 8 o'clock, my spouse now, at the time we were just seeing each other, but she was on the back of the boat, and she's like, oh, I'm hung. And I was like, her line moving. I'm like, I don't think you're hung, and I thought she probably had a catfish or something. She starts she's reeling it in, and I see it turn, and I see like the golden, skin. I was like, that's a walleye. It's like biggest. I've never caught a walleye that big in Tennessee or in Minnesota, even in my life.
Okay.
And I was like, that thing is huge. So that was our first one. All these old guys that were out there were like looking like, what,
Yeah.
anything. And then one too long after that, I caught one that was almost that big, not quite. And I think we caught like 3 or 4 more that morning, and it was amazing. So that was still
nice.
my favorite favorite memories of walleye fishing in Tennessee. So
Yeah.
that's the only lake I've caught walleye on. I know they're in Tim's Ford, Old Hickory, as I mentioned, Center Hill Lake, and I'm sure Dale Hollow as well. So there's quite a few opportunities here. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem like people really go after them as much as,
Yeah.
like catfish and stuff like that. I know people do, but and there's sawguy, I guess is how you say it. I always say
Yeah.
sauger, but sawguy. They're tend to be a little bit smaller than walleye, but you can find those as well.
Actually, Douglas Lake has a lot of them because I fished a Bass Open. I caught more walleye than I did bass. I didn't notice walleye in Douglas, but yeah, Douglas has quite a good population now of walleye.
That it kind of reminds me of Bull Shoals Lake. I actually fished there with my dad years ago because we had some friends that lived in Branson, and I was like, wanted to take my dad out. Being from Minnesota, I was like, let's go see if we can hire a guide and go get some walleye in Bull Shoals. And we had a great morning, but all we caught was white bass.
Yep.
And they were good sized white bass, but we never caught any walleye. And then my first LBAA tournament on Bull Shoals, practicing with Deanna Laverne, she caught a walleye during practice, and that's I was like, can I hold that up and get a picture and show my dad? It's like, Dad, there are walleye in Bull Shoals.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
no, they're definitely fun, and they taste good as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one fish I will eat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had a club tournament on one of the lakes over by me. I'm in upstate New York, and my boat and I were throwing crankbaits off this one area, and all of a sudden I hook a fish. I'm like, oh, it's a big one. Got about a 3-pound walleye. I'm like, oh. Then he casts out and gets about a 3-pound walleye. I'm like, oh. It's noon. Neither of us have a bass, so should we just try to fill a live well with dinner?
That's right.
So another guy comes next to us, and he's like, I see you guys are catching some fish. How's it going? And I said, well, I said to him, I go, JP, we're not catching many bass, but we're catching 3 and 4 pound walleye.
I'd take it.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And that's what we did. We filled our limit of walleye.
Nice.
We had a nice fish fry that night at the hotel.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That you did.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So, you travel all over the country, fishing different tournaments and your career and everything like that. Is there any lake that you have not fished that you'd like to fish?
That's a good question. I'm sure there is. I've gotten to fish Gunnersville now a few times. It's always kind of been a bucket list lake to hit up. One that I didn't even know about that would be on my bucket list now that I've been there through the LBAA was Lake Chatoog in the North Georgia mountains. That's probably, and when you say probably, that's the most beautiful lake I've ever fished with the kind of the mountainous surroundings and just beautiful waters. Believe it or not, I have yet to go to Dale Hollow. I've lived here for so many years, and I've had a boat since 2015 or access to boats, and I have yet to go there. And every year I say I'm going to, and I hear how clear that water is.
It is.
Good crappie fish in there. All sorts of fish, but that's that being so close to me. I feel silly saying that that's one lake that I would like to fish that I haven't been to yet. But it's true.
It is a beautiful lake. I've been there many times fishing tournaments, and it's gorgeous up there.
Yeah. So I need to, maybe we'll make that happen this year. I shouldn't just say maybe. I'll just just pick a day and put it on the calendar and make it happen, I guess.
There you go. Now you're talking.
Yeah.
You and your spouse can go out there and enjoy the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
that's
nice.
easy day trip for me. So it's silly that we haven't done it yet.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about your boat. I know you got a Crestliner. Kind of talk about it because I got a local dealership. I see them out there, and they're a really nice boat.
Yeah, I love the Crestliner. Kind of going back to my roots with the aluminum boat. Um, rides pretty close to a bass boat as far as I'm concerned, or a fiberglass boat. I meant.
Yep.
This is the MX-19, so
Yep.
it's they make the MX-21. I love the 19, just because I love to fish shallow. That's kind of my thing. That can get in those real tight spots. We had tournament on like Truman Lake where there's all kinds of trees and you're kind of bumper boating in between
Oh
all the
yeah.
trees, and that's like the perfect boat to have because you can pretty much take it anywhere. So I absolutely love that about the Crestliner MX-19. I mean, and I'm talking inches of water. When I first was, getting hooked up with it and everything, and I was like, "What's the draft on it?" Like trying to find out. I'm messaging John Cox, and I'm like, "How shallow can it get?" He's like, "Well," he's like, "I've gotten out, and I'm in like ankle deep water." So
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, all right, that'll be good."
You, you
So
can't get too much shallower than that.
No.
no, I mean lightweight. Just really easy ride. All my co-anglers always comment, about how nice it rides. I don't have the passenger console, but I had, no one's ever complained about that. When you're out there and it's really rough, yeah, you're probably gonna get a little wet. I
Yeah.
mean, probably in most any boat, anyways.
Correct.
But yeah, no, it's been amazing, and I toyed with bringing it with me down to Florida, but then you got to find somewhere to store it,
Yeah.
and we can talk about this. I do work for Freedom Boat Club, and it's like so I have access to boats while I'm down there, anyways.
Yeah.
So it's been sitting here in Nashville, and I've been missing it quite a bit. So I'm we've been busy like getting unpacked and getting everything situated and back, settled since we got back from Florida. And I'm getting ready for this. We're doing a Freedom Boat Sisters fishing meetup this Saturday. So I've been getting
Cool.
gear ready behind me there for the ladies. We're going to do some bank fishing. But now I've got all that kind of squared away. I'm like, all right, let's get the boat out. Let's go.
And that 19 makes it more maneuverable. Like I know my buddy's got 18, and boy, he get through docks and it's just amazing. That shorter boat it's so much more maneuverable.
Yeah, it's got the 200 Mercury Pro XS on it, so
Oh
I
wow,
can get, easily like 56,
easily,
right, 57. That's plenty
yeah.
fast for me. You're supposed to,
Yeah.
It's got the 2 power poles, and then the Lowrance Ghost trolling motor, which I really love.
Nice.
It's my first time running that, and I love that it doesn't have like the cable that can get wrapped all around.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite features about it. But I've got it all hooked up with my power poles, and the foot pedal, and
Cool.
I want to do a video about that. I need to just to kind of show how all that can function together. So, but yeah, the one thing I don't have that I had on my previous boat I do miss is the forward facing sonar. So,
yeah.
Maybe I'll be able to add that at some point, but
Sure.
they're not cheap.
No, they're not. No,
and hard to get right now.
Yeah, and I've got the 2 Lowrance HDS 12 units, one up front and one on the console, and I'd probably need another unit, and there's another expense to add. So
Yeah.
Right now,
battery.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's one of my sponsors this year is Z Pro Lithium.
Nice.
Yeah, those came in while we've been down in Florida, so I actually need to go take it over and get those put on. So that's going to help with the power and the electronics and stuff like that. So
and weight savings, huge weight savings.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see if I get some additional speed.
Oh, no doubt you will.
Get that swapped out. So
Yeah, Pam says hello. She was out talking about the LBAA, and she wants to say hi to you.
Of course she was. Hey, Pam.
Yeah,
Miss
she
you.
does.
Miss y'all at the tournaments for sure.
Yeah, she does great with promoting, and especially to the youth anglers as well. So.
Yep.
Yeah, she does a lot. She does a lot.
Yep. High school fishing. Yep.
Yes.
Very cool.
Now, a little bit ago, I asked about lake that you'd like to fish. Is there any bodies of water that you don't really care to go back to?
As great as the fishing is in Texas, it's not really so much the lake itself, but we've been to Ray Hubbard, I don't know, maybe 3 times, at least twice. And like the last time the weather was, it's a big bowl, and so if you get wind, it gets really, really rough. And I think even Pam Martin Wells said one tournament there was the most scared she's ever been.
Wow.
Out on a lake, and we had to cancel the second day of the tournament the one year. It's just not my favorite area because it's so close to Dallas. I guess it's like I say, it's not so much the lake itself. It's actually where I caught my personal best during a tournament.
Oh wow! So you got to love hate with that lake.
There you go. That's right.
Kind of like me in Gunnersville.
Yeah.
But also, it's also the furthest for me. So that's also the reason why, Texas is one of the furthest places that we go with, through the LBA. And so that always makes it hard. I mean, it's a long, we're hauling a truck camper plus pulling the boat, which actually Ray Hubbard, we stayed at Airbnb, but Palestine, we brought the truck camper down. So it's a haul, but
sure. Pam says the last one there was brutal.
Yep, and at the time I didn't have the Crestliner yet. I still had I had a center console Key West, and so I was about the only boat that was going to be able to handle that second day.
Oh wow!
They did send us, but they didn't, and that was a good call. And actually, when we were leaving town, we went over one of the bridges, and one side looked kind of calm, but the other side was like white caps, and I mean, yeah, that would not have been good. And then we got to Arkansas, and it came a blizzard, and
wow,
that would have been rough.
Yeah.
Yes. But, what you mentioned your personal best a couple times. What is your personal best?
I mean, in a tournament for the LBA, it was a 5.33 pounder.
Nice.
So, I mean, you always want that 8, 9, 10 pounder that hasn't come yet, but maybe one day, if we add some Florida tournaments,
Oh yeah.
So I kind of keep pushing towards. I'm like, I'm already down there anyway, so
yeah, get them
early March, something like that.
There's some down there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's your personal best in general?
People ask me that. I don't know, because like when I'm just fun fishing, I don't, back before I started doing tournaments, I never really cared about weighing anything. You know what I mean? So it's just like, wow, that one was big.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be guessing, but then that's just telling for stories, I guess, at that point.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, but I mentioned now I work for Freedom Boat Club, and I started as a training captain, but now I actually sell memberships for Tennessee. So that's what allows me to be able to work remotely in the winter time, because I don't really need to be here physically. I can do pretty much everything over the phone or text and email. We don't get a whole lot of people wanting to come by the docks and do like personal tours to like see the boats and stuff in the winter. When we do, we do have those 80-degree days sometimes in Tennessee in the winter. You never know what what Tennessee is going to do. So we have dock managers here that are always happy to show people around. So it's been a lot of fun to get to do some more fishing down in Florida. So not just bass fishing, but I do some inshore fishing, like redfish, snook, trout. That's always super fun to mix it up. I've got my friend Captain Debbie Hanson's down there. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of her, but
Yeah, I have.
she's a guide. So she does a lot of fresh water, brackish water, and goes down to the Everglades and peacock bass.
Yep.
But she does, largemouth and stuff like that. So she's real close to where we stay. So that's a lot of fun.
Oh, cool.
Crazy Alberto's down there. If you heard of him, he's the one
Yep.
that invented the Alberto knot. So
Yep.
got to do some snookzilla fishing with Crazy Alberto, and I love mixing it up. I've always been a multi-species angler, except for these last few years, really focused on bass. So with the decision to not do the tournaments this year, I'm excited to kind of get back to a little bit more, do some fun fishing, mix it up, do some crappie and other stuff. Just fun fish. I kind of miss even throwing a bobber and just waiting to see, that bobber go down. So
Nice.
yeah.
So for a lot of us out here, can you explain what the Freedom Boat Club is?
Yeah, so Freedom Boat Club started way back in 1989, and actually at that time no boat club existed, so it was the first of its kind. But essentially, it started in Florida and has grown to now it's over 400 locations worldwide. So
Wow.
members join the boat club, kind of like a country club. You pay a one-time fee to join the club, and then you just pay your monthly membership dues. And that gives you access to a fleet of boats that we buy, maintain, clean, all the things that boat owners have to deal with, that members can just show up, take the boat out, enjoy their time on the water, come back in, go home. So
Wow.
it's essentially the hassle-free alternative to boating. Down in Florida, it's very heavily fishing focused. A lot of the coastal locations have even offshore boats, twin engines, so people can take them out, go have a great day of fishing, and come back in. And saltwater, you got a lot more extra stuff you got to do as a boat owner.
Absolutely.
The club takes care of all that, so it doesn't have to be an all day deal. So yeah, it's a great concept. In Tennessee, like I said, I think earlier, we have 6 locations in the Nashville area, 5 over in East Tennessee.
Wow.
So 11 across the state that members can go to as often as they want. And then you get that reciprocal access if you go down to Florida or San Diego or, Chicago, wherever it may be. There's locations all over.
Wow, that's impressive.
Nice. There you go, Rob.
It's a lot of fun. It's like the perfect fit for me, just being such an avid boater. And I also get to tie in some fishing stuff, and we're trying to tie in, even more. Last year, we started a group called the Freedom Boat Sisters, which is just a group for the lady members to get together. So we try to do meetups about once a month. Our first was just educational. So we did like a knot tying night. We invited the ladies out. We supplied these little cleats, that are mounted on wood blocks, and we did different, cleat hitches and all kinds of different nautical knots that you kind of need to know.
Nice.
And then we've just, gotten together for like a sunset cruise or whatever. But this Saturday, I'm taking them out for some pier fishing here on Percy Priest Lake. The crappie are biting, and there's some bluegill and stuff, and just gonna kind of set them up with some bobber setups and some, I'm gonna go get some minnows and some night crawlers, and hopefully
cool.
Some of these ladies haven't really ever fished before. There's a few that have a little bit, so it's just kind of educational thing, and we'll go get some lunch afterwards at one of the marinas, and it's just a fun time. It's, about networking and getting to know each other and learning, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
It sounds like it. Pam Horn wants to know if there's any locations close to bigger lakes and offshore.
Definitely. So, Pam, I don't know what you mean as far as bigger lakes. Like, I mean, you're talking really big lakes. We've got all kinds of locations around the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and more. And then, yeah, offshore, we've got Isla Morada. You go down to the Keys and you can take some offshore boats out and do some pretty amazing fishing down there. But yeah, all around Florida. So where I've been staying's been Fort Myers. So we have several locations in that area. But Salty Sam's is where I've gone and taken boats out. I've only stayed inshore personally, even though I have my master captain's license. You do have to do a 4-hour offshore training with Freedom Boat Club before you can take boats offshore. I just haven't done that training yet. Maybe next year I'll knock that out. But I just love even just boating inshore. It's so much fun.
Definitely.
Joseph Berthelot says he's late, but he made it. And hello, Angie.
Hey, Joseph. Thanks for watching.
Carly Jo Prevette, she's late. She's a fan of the show, but better late than never.
Yep, you can catch the recording, watch the beginning, right?
There you go.
I do have a difficult question to ask you.
All right.
What is your favorite homemade cookie?
That's actually not super difficult. I mean, I'm pretty plain Jane. I love a good old fashioned chocolate chip cookie.
Okay.
There you go.
My mom made pretty good chocolate chip cookies growing up, so I've always been a fan of Cookie Monster too.
There you go.
Well, the reason behind that is my wife and I used to do a podcast, and that was a fishing podcast, and that was one of the questions that she would ask because she's also a baker. So
nice.
I like to joke around with Rob and the guests and say, "Look, I have to ask this question because if not, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight."
Well, I'm glad you're not sleeping on the couch tonight.
Yeah, and Rob will turn me in. He's that kind of friend.
Hey, I can't lie. I can't lie if she asked me. So sorry, man.
I wouldn't expect you to, man. We're at a point of the show, almost 50 minutes into the show, and we like to give you time to talk about your passion, your podcast, your sponsors, or anything you'd like to talk about. And
any causes you support, just it's your time.
All right, cool. Well, one thing before we get into the podcast, we were talking about East Tennessee and Knoxville, and one pretty amazing memory comes to mind was the Bassmaster Classic, not this past one, but the one time before it was in Knoxville. I had just left the music industry. I had a little bit of a hiatus in between jobs, so I hadn't started working with Freedom Boat Club yet. And that was right in between that time. So I was like, I'm gonna go to the Bassmaster Classic in Knoxville, and that was my first time ever experiencing the Bassmaster Classic. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I went as media through the podcast, and so I signed up to do a ride-along media day, and my first pick was Gerald Swindle, and I happened to get him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I had no idea what to expect. I was really nervous because I thought that, as his marshal, quote unquote, that I was going to have to back his boat in.
Yeah.
And, I'm not the best boat backer. I can do it, don't get me wrong, but especially in that type of situation, I was like, oh my gosh. So I had like butterflies in my stomach, and I was really happy when Lulu came rolling up driving.
Oh yeah, she's good. She's good.
So I was able to just hop right in the boat with G-Man. She launched us, and then off we went. And that was a super fun day because G-Man, he's such a huge music fan, and when he found I had worked in the music business, like we had, I knew all these artists that he was telling me about, and that from that day on, we just kind of struck up a friendship. And the next ICAST, I was down there and I was walking the floor and I saw them and I was like, oh, he's never gonna remember me because it was a super cold day and I had all
Yeah.
I was covered up and everything. And he's like, hey, there's Angie. She was my marshal at the classic.
Oh yeah.
And that was so cool. So like to this day, he'll like send me a link to a song that he found that he thinks is cool. And they came to
Wow.
Nashville to celebrate his 50th birthday and invited us downtown to go hang out with them. And so yeah, that was pretty fun. One of my fondest memories of Knoxville. But yeah, talk about the podcast. So back, the new season, 2024 season, new episodes every single Tuesday. Just had Linda Greenlaw on a few weeks ago. That was really, really cool. She was on the Deadliest Catch, sword fishing captain on the East Coast. So best-selling author. That was pretty amazing to have her on. But I've got an episode coming out tomorrow. It's actually switching it up a little bit. It is the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. So not every single episode is always about fishing. Sometimes I feature ladies who hunt or,
Yep.
do hiking or camping. Tomorrow I actually have a hunting guide on.
Oh, cool.
Her name's Miguela. See, I told you guys I was going to mispronounce her name. Minto. But she's a hunting guide up in like Vancouver, British Columbia. Her family, or I'm sorry, Alberta, British Columbia area, and her family has an outfit there, North River Outfitting. And it's pretty
Okay.
cool to hear her story growing up in that family and becoming a female hunting guide and some of the challenges that she's had to face. So that's coming out tomorrow. And then just a quick shout out to some of my sponsors. So,
Sure.
of course, Crestliner, wouldn't have the boat without them. Love the boat. So, it's got the Mercury motor, Lowrance Electronics, and then, of course, Freedom Boat Club being not only my employer, but also a huge supporter of the podcast. And when I, do tournament fish, I wouldn't be able to do it without their support. And hopefully we'll be tying in some more stuff through that this year as
Cool.
far as fishing goes and members and whatnot. Z Pro, as I mentioned earlier, with the lithium batteries, of course, St. Croix rods, but long time supporter of mine, and I absolutely love my St. Croix rods. I got a story about the first time I ever held one in my hand, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been missing out buying these cheap bass rods." And now 7 reels. I really
Yep.
haven't. I've got a few. I haven't really been able to put them into the test quite yet, but I've felt them, and I love the way they feel. They seem really, really well built. So I'm excited to get those out there and work those a little more. Stealth Rod Holders has been a long time supporter. iBass 360,
Mhm.
Costa Sunglasses, and then huge shout out to Adventurous Magazine, which is the only women's outdoor magazine. Jen Pudens, I've had her on the show. So love to support her and what she's doing with Adventurous. If you go to Adventurous and subscribe, if you use the code Woman Angler, you'll get a 15% off discount on your subscription. So
Cool.
yeah.
Nice.
Real quick, if anybody wants some more information about Freedom Marine, do they have a website or something? How do you contact and get more information?
Yeah, freedomboatclub.com is where you can go. There's a map on the homepage which shows you where all the locations are. You
Cool.
can request information for your area. There's probably a Freedom Boat Club somewhere nearby. And it's a great way to go if you don't, have a place to store a boat or don't want to pay for slip fees, and deal with all the other hassles and maintenance that come along with owning a boat, as we all know.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Anything else, Rob?
All things you covered. I said we appreciate you and everything you do, and look forward to your podcast tomorrow night. And keep on doing what you do. Do what you love. It's a good thing.
Yeah, the episode will actually be out first thing in the morning, so it should be
Cool.
live when you wake up, and just go. You can search for The Woman Angler and Adventure. You shouldn't have to type the whole thing in. You can just type The Woman Angler on whatever podcast player that you like,
Okay.
or go to thewomanangler.com and it will be live on the website. So,
Oh, cool. Good deal.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Angie. We appreciate you coming on and talking to us and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Good luck in everything you do.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Woo, she got a lot going. We need some we need some time management courses from her, because she's got a lot going on.
Yeah, you're definitely correct there. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you again for tuning into our podcast. Like Angie said earlier in the show, if you didn't catch the whole thing, you can always catch it on the Co-Angler's Corner YouTube channel. And anything else you want to add in, Rob?
No, just hope everybody had a good weekend and go out and go fishing. I fished up South Holston, had a pretty good time, and actually camped out with our guests for tomorrow night.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll cover that tomorrow.
Okay. Well, just a little teaser there. Great guy, by the way. Great guy.
All right. Well, everybody, you take care and be safe, and catch you tomorrow.
All right. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and we love y'all. And y'all have a good night. Peace out.